Hi there, business owner. Do you want a better understanding of business finance, what your numbers actually mean, and stories of the highs and lows of business, where I'll be sharing my tips and tricks every week? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 3Bs podcast. If you're new here, hi, I'm Stephanie, the host and CEO of ABCS UK. This week, I wanted to talk to you about employees versus freelancers, or contractors as you may call them. Because if you've seen on our socials and you follow us at ABCS UK, you will see that our team has expanded and I have taken on my very first employed employee rather than using freelancers or subcontractors. And it feels very real. It feels very like it's the next step. It's a very permanent step. That's how it feels. And as we grow and scale ABCS UK, it's important that we take on the right members of the team at the right time to ensure we have capacity to give the highest service possible to our clients. So because it's fresh in my mind, it's something we've recently just done in ABCS UK, I think it's great that I'm going to share that with you this week. If you are thinking about growing and scaling your business, you are thinking about adding team members, whether it's your first or your 100th, I hope this will be helpful for you. I'm going to go through the pros and the cons, and depending on what type of a business you are and at what point in business you're at, there'll be benefits to both, and the pros and cons may be different depending on the business you are. Before I get into the episode, I really wanted to stress that it is okay to change your mind as a business owner. I feel like I should repeat this every single week in every episode, because as business owners, the business changes, we change, everything develops, and we sometimes need to pivot. And that is important to take into consideration when deciding whether you're going to take on an employee or a freelancer, or stay as you are and not take on any members of staff. So if you're thinking about it, this episode is for you. I hope you enjoy it. I'd love your feedback. So I'd also like to stress that obviously we are a UK business. We're based in England. The information that I will be talking about today will definitely be about UK businesses. When I first started this podcast, it was aimed at UK businesses, but we have listeners in 9 different countries now across the world. So if you are a UK-based business, then this information is up to date and relevant. If you are from a different country, it will definitely be worth checking the rules and regulations in your country or where your business is based, as they may vary. So for those of you who don't know, ABCS UK is a bookkeeping and accountancy practice predominantly, but we also do all areas of business development. So we do email marketing, we do social media, we help with software, we help increase efficiencies across the business. We have built our own CRM software, we have built web shops. Our main goal when clients come to work with us is they have a business goal and we will help them get to it. And we will support them in any way we can. And we've become experts in many different areas of business because of that. We do outsource certain tasks, so social media management is one of them, because I am not an expert in social media. And up until this point, it was just myself, apart from those outsourced services that I'm not the expert in. At ABCS UK, and with most bookkeeping and accountancy practice, the bit that is most time heavy is the onboarding. And that is because when a new client comes to us, they will have a lot of niches and nuances that we need to understand. We could have every gardener or every motorsport team in the country as clients, and yet every single one would have their own individual nuances. It could be certain suppliers they use. It could be certain legal structures in the business that's slightly different. It could be that payment terms are different with certain clients. It could be that they have certain clients who are VVIPs that have to be responded to within a certain time frame, and that's part of the agreement. All of these little nuances we need to understand at ABCS UK as your partner, so that we can help you provide the best service that you can, and in effect we do the same thing, and you can reach your business goals quicker. I am now at a point where my capacity in the business means that if we were to take on any more clients, that onboarding, the capacity we would struggle to fulfill. So we had a long discussion with other business owners in our network. That's the great thing about the bookkeeping and accountancy world, is that although we are all doing the same thing, they're incredibly collaborative, and it is definitely we all work together to achieve our individual goals too, which is why I love what I do. And we discussed at length of whether I should take on another bookkeeper, whether I should take on an accountant, whether I should take on an admin assistant, whether I should have an employee or a freelancer. And that's a conversation that I've had for quite a few months now. And somebody said to me in the group that, in our network, that asked me which part I would love to get rid of, which I found ironic because it is something that I ask my guests whenever they come on the podcast. If there was one thing I could take away with a magic wand and it would still be done, what would it be and why? So I asked myself that question, and for me, the administration, the data entry tasks that I could train anybody to do, is the bit that I could easily drop. I don't necessarily dislike doing it, but it's the part of the business that I could easily drop as long as somebody else did it, and I could focus on the bits that really light me up. So I'm an ideas woman. I am the person that will come up with the ideas objectively because I can see your business from an outside perspective, even though I understand the inner workings of it. And that's really where I thrive, and I get a lot of job satisfaction from that area. So we agreed that an admin assistant would be the best thing for us to do. And I wanted somebody in the office. So obviously being on my own in the office, it's incredibly lonely at times anyway, but you're talking to a literal brick wall. And sometimes you just need that person to bounce an idea off, to sense check you, especially because I'm always so full of ideas and what I want to do next, or what my clients could possibly do next. To have that sense check was really important to me, and that's where the freelancer wouldn't be suitable for me in this situation, because I needed somebody in that office. And when you have a freelancer in the UK dictating that they have to come into the office to do their shifts, sometimes it's a grey area, but can cross the IR35 boundaries and can then fall into the employee bracket legally, which then changes the annual leave, the rights and the statutory things that I will cover later in the episode. So we now have a wonderful administration assistant. So if you email info@abcsuk.com, you will get my wonderful admin assistant. And it's enabled us to actually open up more capacity to help more business owners, which is my goal, to help as many business owners as possible, hence this weekly podcast. So for us, that is why we took on an employee rather than a freelancer as the business grows. So the pros of hiring an employee over a freelancer is the dedication and loyalty. Employees are often more dedicated and loyal to your business, contributing to its long-term success because they're working only for you and they're not spread across the clients, which also means that their availability is more consistent. You won't have to be as flexible with them, rather than a freelancer who will obviously fit your work into their schedule. If you have an employee, you can develop their skills to work for you in your business. So if, like us at ABCS UK, you do things slightly different to the rest of the industry, then you can train them and mould them to do so and to do it your way. If they are a freelancer and are working across multiple businesses, they will have their set way of doing things, and you're not going to invest in their training and career development if they're not solely working for you. They will also be an integrated part of the team, and a good employer will obviously make the employee feel as part of the team. It won't be that they're working for you, they're with you. And again, that contributes to that long-term success of the business. If they care about it as much as you do, you're off to a great thing. And the commitment and the exclusivity of the business. So again, if they're only working for you, then that exclusivity of working for you can ensure that your workload is managed stably, that they are there as the business needs them to be, which I think is incredibly important. And then on the other side of that, if you're wanting to hire a freelancer, the pros of that can be that they are much more cost efficient. So you will not have to pay for annual leave, statutory sick pay, maternity or paternity pay. Tax and national insurance will be their own responsibility if they're a freelancer. So that is something to consider. Also, they will have specialised skills. So unlike with an employee where you can mould them to what you want, a freelancer can often possess the specialised skill that you need straight away, which means they'll have the expertise that you need for the specific projects and you won't have to train them. Also, I think there's much wider talent pool. If you're looking for a freelancer, I think you're going to be able to find a much better fit if it's a specific project, for example, rather than somebody coming to work for the business long term. You need a specific person for a specific project. You've got a much wider talent pool of freelancers because they will be able to pick up and drop the project rather than committing to you long term. If you only need someone for a short period of time, so if you are a seasonal business, then having that flexibility of a freelancer is important. If you're not going to have the workload for them throughout the entire year, then that's great. A much better freelancer is a better option for that. And overheads, if it's a freelancer, you probably won't need to provide office space or equipment, so your overheads are obviously a lot higher. A freelancer will often use their own laptop, for example, rather than you having to provide one. And as I said, those pros may actually be cons for you, depending on what you're looking for to expand your team or to grow and scale your business. But the cons on the other side of the pros for hiring a employee could be that they have much higher costs. So you've got the benefits, the taxes, the annual leave. You'll also need to consider how the workload will be covered while those employees are on annual leave. So whether you'll need to do it or whether you'll need to get somebody else in to do that and pay them to cover. So you're effectively paying twice. The limited flexibility. So employees may require that structured work environment and those set hours, which limits the flexibility compared to the freelancers. The overhead expenses, so you will need to provide equipment, a work environment, potentially, utilities that you would not necessarily need to provide for a freelancer. You can have remote employees, so obviously since the pandemic, remote employees are much more common now, but again, they would still need equipment provided to them, which would be a cost to the business. It's much more of a complex hiring process. So when you're recruiting and onboarding an employee, it can be much more resource intensive and time consuming as opposed to a freelancer. I feel like hiring a freelancer is a much shorter time frame. So if you're very urgent, then a freelancer may be a better fit for you. And the employment regulations. So there's a lot more regulations in the UK with the HMRC for an employee. When you think of working time regulations, the breaks you have to provide them with, annual leave, health and safety responsibilities. There's much more administration about putting them onto the payroll and all the right to work in the UK regulations, just to name a few. So that's also things that need to be taken into consideration if you are looking to hire an employee. The cons of a freelancer is also that you have the limited loyalty. And that is that freelancers will most probably work for multiple clients at a time, which can lead to potential loyalty issues, especially if they are a freelancer who specialises in working with lots of businesses similar to yours. So if there's a VA that specifically works with bookkeeping and accountancy practices, and you're one of them, then their loyalty to you is not necessarily going to be as high as an employee, but they're also going to be working with lots of different people in your niche or in your field, which is something to think about. The communication challenges are often a lot more with freelancers. So the distance, because they're not in the office, the lack of face-to-face interaction can also pose challenges in communication. We all know how a text message or an email can be misconstrued without the use of emojis. Even with the use of emojis, they can be misconstrued as opposed to that face-to-face conversation. You can hire freelancers and still see them face-to-face. That can be the way that you work. So again, although it's a con, there is ways around it, and it'll be whatever works best for you and your business and the freelancer if that's the road you choose to go down. Relying on one freelancer alone can be risky. So if you're relying on somebody that's just them, so for example, people that used to come to ABCS UK would only deal with me. If I was ever too sick to work, then that and I didn't have any continuity of cover put in place, then that could impact project timelines and deadlines. Some freelancers will be more than one person, but that shouldn't influence your decision. If that one person has continuity of cover like we do, then that shouldn't impact your decision, but it's definitely something to think about working with a freelancer as well as hiring one. Also, the quality variability may be different. So if you've not got your training and your standards across to them clearly enough, the quality of work will vary across freelancers. So if you find a reliable one, brilliant, but it could be that 2 or 3 freelancers you use for social media marketing, 2 of them work a particular way and the third one's quality is not going to be the same, and that can cause a problem for both yourself and your clients, depending on what business you're in. And also the long-term commitment. So if the business owner is hiring somebody as a freelancer, they can leave at any time. That's great if you only want them for a short-term project, but if you're looking for someone who's going to help you build your business long-term for ongoing projects, then a freelancer may not be the best person for you to choose. This week's episode is slightly over 15 minutes, so please don't hate me, but there was a lot of information I wanted to pack in there so that you could make a much more informed decision about whether to hire an employee or a freelancer if you're looking to grow your team. As always, please do let me know what you think. Rate, review and subscribe so I can reach more business owners. It's really important to me that we all build better businesses. There's a saying that we have at ABCS UK, which is we grow together, and my business grows as your business grows, and I love to be a part of it. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I'll see you next week. And that brings us to the end of another week of the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. Thank you so much for listening. I'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, rate and review this podcast wherever you are listening to it, so that I can reach more business owners and help them build better businesses. See you next week for the next episode.